Thank you very much to our three speakers. Very interesting and thought-provoking papers. We have some questions in the Q&A chat box and also in the message. But perhaps before we can start our session of question and answer, may I just throw one question to all of you? Hopefully, you find this quite interesting to answer. So first, thank you very much to all your wonderful presentations. And what reverberates in your three papers is that we see the important role of experience in musical pedagogy. As music educators and ethnomusicologists, how can we contribute in developing valuation for the local ways of musicking? Maybe we can start with Dr. Guadalupe first, and then Dr. Ching, and then lastly, we will have Dr. Anothai Nitibhon.
I think a lot of encouragement should come from not only from schools, but the tie-in between these music cultures at the village level in the everyday life. We've seen in our schools of living tradition that sometimes when the lives of kids is disconnected with their culture, they tend not to appreciate their local music. So I think a lot of reflection should go into how we view development, how we view how children should spend their leisure time, to make sure that it is consistent with how we are as a people. Schools can only do so much. Sometimes when you teach it in school, it becomes a requirement. Therefore, the kids hate it. That's why it's there should be a balance between what they really see in school and what they study in school. And then, of course, there's the aspect of testing. When you test it, it sort of becomes how would you call it? It's an assault to the self. And if your society is much more collaborative, if you do things together, but then the testing is individual. And so it sort of has a disconnect. So these things have to be really thought about. How we think about schools, how we think about our daily lives, and how our daily life connect to the schools, and how we assess and look at our children for testing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joy. Dr. Clare?
Okay, thank you for the question. It did keep provoke my thoughts, and I'm probably answering the question to Prof. Tan too. I was just thinking about probably what Dr. Jocelyn did mention, how the communities and the school and the university are connected to one vision or one goal, and each must believe in this vision and this goal. And I probably don't think that all of them will believe in this vision. So maybe if we can even convince one community, one school, and the university is actually quite gung-ho about community development now. So the university is actually reaching out, but it's how we can find the other groups, a school and a community that is interested. Even one or two would be helpful, I think. Yeah, because like I think Jocelyn said, in schools, the kids are too busy with other things to entertain you. And the communities, they are so busy with income, they need to earn income to think that to entertain you too.
Thank you for your answer, Dr. Clare. And shall we hear from Dr. Anothai?
I think the first challenge is about prejudice within the institutions. I think we often see that certain types of music are being upheld above other types of music. And I think these ideas of equality within the musical values is very important. And this is the first challenge that we can get through as an educator, and we will reverberate this through our students as well. And then the second thing is about the importance of listening. We have been teaching our students to perform a lot and not listening enough. And if we can actually start to have these as a core of our education, of our basic education, per se, is ethnomusicology, performance or compositions, I think if listening can be the core, I think this would help promote music to a much more wider world. And I think the last thing is about the idea of musician as a global citizen. And as a citizen, we also have our duty to continue our cultures as well, and not just as a musicians, but also an overall quality of what culture is. And these 3 points: prejudice, listening, and duty as a global citizen, I think.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. Anothai. Before I call on Dr. Baez, I have a follow-up question on, because you have mentioned about listening. We have focused so much our pedagogies into performances. So sometimes we check their performance as a manifestation of their learning. And we see, and now we hear from your lectures that also it is a very basic ingredient in learning to listen. So also, as earlier mentioned by Dr. Campbell in her lecture a while ago, we have to teach our students to listen. Now, my question is, how do we teach them to listen? So this can also be answered by the 3 panelists. So maybe Dr. Anothai can.
Yeah, may I attempt first? Okay, yeah. I guess that from Dr. Campbell's presentation, she mentioned the learner as kind of like the 4 elements to be listening to, or to be kind of working with. And I guess as possibly because of my experience as an educator and composers, I always start with the learner. So in this case, like from this presentation, I also start with asking the questions to the younger generation. So I think this possibly is the way to, if we want to teach them to listen, then we have to start listening to them first, and not just listening to their stories, their struggles, but also the music that they're listening to. And I remember, like in my past, when I study music theories, some of my teachers, instead of using all these classical repertoire, they decided to use some of the pop music to teach us music theory. And so I think it's really important to listen to what people listen to and then find ways to connect to that. And it's challenging, of course, because as a music educator, you have to learn different types of music to be able to connect with people. But I think that's the challenge that we should celebrate.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have some thoughts on it. It's kind of an interesting question. I think the way that we can get students to listen is don't give them a score, a music score.
Yes, yes. Exactly.
Because actually, what I mentioned in the my presentation, the musician always reminded the students, the kids, to listen before you imitate. So actually, I think that goes back to the way that people were learning prior to actually having a score in front of them, that they were actually listening. They had to listen to learn. So yeah, don't give them a score, I guess.
Yes. Thank you. Very practical guide. Thank you. And Dr. Joy?
A lot of the pedagogies presented by Dr. Campbell a while ago focuses not only on listening, but on embodiment. In our culture, in the Philippines, in the Mansaka, before they teach a child the hegelung, the instrument has to call to the child. So it's sort of, the instrument is an extension of the body. But what happens in modern music education is that the parents there is no child agency. The parents decide what instrument when after school, to fill up the time. So a lot of the listening is involved to listening to the body. And it's also common in anthropology that when we learn multisensorily. So that we don't only listen to music, we can sometimes taste it, or sometimes remember things in a memory because of this music the food that we were eating while we were listening to that music. And so a lot of it goes to involving emotion, involving the body.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Thank you for all your answers. We have one question here from Dr. Tan Sui Beng earlier, but I believe that Dr. Clare has already answered in writing. But may I just ask Dr. Tan Sui Beng if you would like to repeat your question live so that our other participants can also hear Dr. Clare's answer?
Yeah. No, Clare is a very good paper. So I would like to know whether, what are the ways of introducing this to the bigger community, right? Because, we know that the children are not taught the correct way in the formal schools, right? So because the Orang Asli have their own ways of teaching. So do you see the methodology that you have been uncovering through your research? Do you see these methods being slowly introduced into the main education system, and how would you do it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a difficult question. At the moment, I'm not sure how the education system would embrace this. Of course, we do have a clause that encourages the music of a specific region to be introduced to the school of the region, but this is not really happening that much. One of the reasons is because there's lack of focus on music as an important subject in school. And I also have quite a number of difficulties working with schools, because when I try to do some projects in the school, even just opposite my university, they have too many things on the agenda. The Chinese kids will be full of tuition, even if you ask to do Saturday with classes with them, music classes, they are having tuition. Even if they're holidays, they're also having tuition. So yeah, this is it's a continued issues that I'm having. I keep thinking of how I can do this, how I can actually get these projects running. And it may be just as simple as maybe working with a community that believes in it and just starting it from there. And that's for now the most I can do.
Yeah, I think you need to just start small and show that it can work, right? So from there, then people will accept your methodology and it can spread, you see. So just start small. It's a very good idea. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tan Sui Beng, for the question, and also Dr. Clare for answering. And now may I call on Dr. Jonas Baez, because he has a question in our chat box, and he would like to ask this question live. Dr. Baez?
Okay. Hi, Claire. I met you somewhere, I don't remember. But anyway, this has to do with of course, I've typed out a simple aspect of the question, which is, can you describe the nature of the incorporation of the semi into the mainstream of Malaysian society? Because that will resonate so much, this nature might resonate so much on the notion of even teaching the children. So what is the nature of their, were they incorporated as in, they became a political unit by the government? Was their ancestral land grabbed from them, or what is the nature of this incorporation?
The Semai are the largest group of indigenous people in Malaysia. So what the government has done is they have actually worked with the Semai to create a dictionary, and a co-curriculum for learning Semai language and Semai culture. So actually the government has worked with the Semai group on this, because they're the largest Semai indigenous population. So there has been some work done there. It's just that nothing has been done so much on the music yet.
Yeah, because that would resonate to another question, because if we believe that music is, especially with people in the rainforest, connected with the environment, the natural and the social environment, and you are bringing back the music of stamping tubes and nose flutes to a people who have cultivated them before this generation, of course, done. So how do we approach this engagement? for example, if you're teaching tubes, these stamping tubes, I forgot the name of the stamping tubes. Weren't these, especially with indigenous peoples in the uplands of Malaysia, weren't these connected with spirit rituals and dream songs? And now you're teaching it to children, and so that means it has disappeared, and somehow. So why has it disappeared, and how will you acknowledge this into the consciousness of the young semi?
Okay, so yes, all these songs are actually related to healing rituals.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that brings me to another point. One of the issues that I face with trying to get the semi next generation to be interested in this music is they had a lot of excuses. I mean, I don't want to say excuses, but they told me that they are afraid to perform these songs without the context of the main singer, which is the shaman.
Yes, precisely, yes.
Yeah. So, but the weird thing is the shaman taught me all these songs, and I kept asking him, can I actually perform these songs? Can I bring this to the schools? But shaman kept telling me, yes, I give you the permission. I have already informed the spirits out there that you came to learn from me with due respect I'm your teacher, and I have already informed them. So there's this not disagreement between me and the grandchildren. They kind of, I don't know, they just look what I'm doing with, what I'm doing.
I think yes, I'm getting a picture of that, and maybe we can discuss this further outside this conference, because I'm part of a small group of concerned artists working with a group of people in the island of Mindoro in the Philippines who have well, I don't know how similar the situation is, but they have also lost their songs, their culture, and their land along with that. And perhaps you could compare notes with regards to that notion of we are concerned in returning the tradition. We call it returning the tradition, and if there are dynamics like that with shamans who, of course, would not permit, you would understand, because this is a change of it's a change of worldviews actually. The government institution and the institution of the locality of the Semai. That I think is a very important and sensitive aspect, which I think the ethnomusicologists should also be aware of. And as ethnomusicologists, I always believe that I should be an advocate for the people. So anyway, thank you for all this, and maybe we can discuss sometime later regarding dynamics of this. We can compare notes regarding this, the Semai, and the group of people I work with is the Iraya Mangyan.
Thank you,
Okay,
Dr.
thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for your questions. Now we have another question by Dr. Great Leka Cool. This is for Dr. Anothai. Dr. Leka Cool said, really love Dr. Anothai's presentation. It shows how music and arts can work together to motivate human perception in learning music from their everyday life. My question is that do you think that this kind of process of learning can be applied to all universities in Thailand? And also, what is the obstruction in music education in Thailand and other countries?
First, I have to say thank you very much, Dr. Lekakun. First, I hope that this could happen, and I think I really owns it. I mean, to one of my teachers, Ajahn Ananakong, who is an ethnomusicology, and I remember traveling with him to collect songs of indigenous peoples, and these practice fed into my composition practices and also performance and music education as well. So just to kind of like go back to Professor Campbell's point this morning about overlapping and crisscrossing, I think we always wanted to see this happens in the work, like the products of the work, but actually the process of crisscrossing and overlapping between the practice of ethnomusicology, music education, performance creation is so needed, because if you don't have these combination at the beginning, you won't be able to have a product, the end product at the end that sort of like showcasing this. So I think the process is important, and to have the teachers, not only just the student, but the teachers or the collaborations between teachers that can share these skills and groom the student with all these skills. I think I have a personal wish that ethnomusicology practice should be compulsory for all music students, not only just musicologists, I mean, no musicologists, but performers and composers as well. I think I'm sure Professor Bass will agree with me on this. And I think only with that, then we might be able to have a chance to have a music schools that can integrate all these ideas together. Musicians should go out looking at people's life, be part of the community, going to galleries, creating artworks, looking for themes, watching different things. And I think this is compulsory for everyone to be able to continue the art that we hold dear.
Thank you, Dr. Anothai. We have more questions for you from the question and answer chat box. This is from Dr. Motohide Taguchi. And the question is, in Thai music institution, are there any official programs to encourage students to conduct projects related to the society or those with collaboration with other fields of arts? And second question is, thank you very much for introducing various interesting projects led by young Thai artists and musicians. Could you kindly show us the URLs of some of these projects?
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for your interest. And yes, I would say that there are more and more music schools, and not just music, but art schools in Thailand who are promoting the idea that the students should be at the center of creating the art that reverberate their time and their interests as well. So I definitely will send you the link for more of those projects. And of course, I will send you the URL for all these wonderful works by our younger generation musicians, definitely. And look out, there are a lot more things in the Philippines as well. A lot of things that I showed today, a lot of my students learn from our young artists from UP. So thank you for all those inspirations.
Thank you. Let's see if we have more questions in the, you can still continue to type your questions because we have more time to interact with our great panelists. I have one question which may be addressed to all of you. Could you kindly comment on the possibility of using the mediated forms of indigenous music in place-based pedagogical processes? As earlier mentioned by Dr. Campbell also, there are two forms of, how do you say that? Two forms of, one is live performance and the other one is the mediated form. So could you kindly just comment on this important issue of using the mediated form in place-based pedagogical processes?
A lot of culture is fluid and interpretive. I think the processes of how the mediated art forms are presented to children, we can learn a lot. So, for example, if we show them this is how it happens in the ritual, and this is how it is in performative ways, and then we ask the children what are the conditions and possibilities for the rituals as it is done, and then what are the possibilities and conditions when it is mediated. So sort of the pedagogy is to analyze how children can interpret it, because as we know, we continually and we live meaningfully. It's not frozen, so it's very fluid. So there, it's a sort of another sphere in integrating local music.
Thank you for your answer, Dr. Joy. Dr. Clare, the question is, could you comment on the possibility of incorporating or using the mediated forms of indigenous music, for instance, recordings and recorded music in teaching place-based or in teaching the natives or the locals of a particular community?
I think using recordings is quite, I mean, if we don't have the culture barrier, probably using recordings would be one of the best things, because it gets you as close to the music as possible. But we probably have to spend a lot of time explaining the context and the culture that behind it. But I don't think we can escape this, because not many of us will actually get to have the culture barrier in the school actually.
And Dr. Anothai, if you have
yes, definitely. I think listening to recordings or looking at themes, which is growing, of course, is the starting point, but don't stop there. I think I always am a big fan of supporters to traveling. So to be able to sleep in the same place, eat the same food, breathe the same air is always final, I think, in that case. But listening can be the starting point, and also as a memory for all those journey as well. So definitely anywhere possible. And I just one more point to that, even in a music school that focuses on classical music like us, you always see a lot of repertoires actually based on indigenous music. We always encourage our students to look for those music that is the inspiration for these classical pieces. So not only that you have to teach ethnomusicology, but in any music class, you definitely should encourage listening to other musical cultures.
Thank you for that, Dr. Anothai. Earlier, I've seen the hand of Dr. Ramon Santos raised. So if I may call on Dr. Santos to ask his question live.
I just wanted to congratulate all these speakers, because they have dwelled on contexts in terms of the music that are being taught. That's very important. It's very important, because otherwise it will just be another kind of music, but we are dealing here with life, right? With human lives and with societies. So anyway, I really congratulate each and every one of you for doing this. It gives our conference a good taste. Again, congratulations.
Thank you for that affirmation, Dr. Santos. Yeah, I agree. Our three panelists have really presented very important, thought-provoking issues and papers. And we are still open for more questions. We have a few more minutes. So if you would like to still have some discussion of great ideas with our three panelists, you're most welcome. And while waiting, I have one more question, but I think this is already answered partly earlier. This is I got this from Dr. Clare's lecture, but it can also be answered by the three of you. And how do we nurture a self-directed interest among children so they will develop the desire to learn and play musical instruments? So the main question is, how do we nurture this self-directed interest? In most cases, young children are taught musical instruments because their parents would want them to play piano or flute, etc. In indigenous traditions, probably there's also other ways in which they are encouraged by their parents. But as music educators and teachers, how do we nurture this self-directed interest? Yes, Dr. Guadalupe?
A lot of the things that we do in instrument pedagogy is so formalized. I think what Dr. Campbell said a while ago is to integrate the aspect of musical play. So we rarely do that when we study instruments. There is no opportunity for the children to play with the instrument. They play the instrument, but they don't play with the instrument. So there should be a lot of improvisation and perhaps other instrument collaboration, not necessarily in an orchestra, a mixed ensemble, for example, where they can discover timbres of various instruments and see where their instrument comes into play in the soundscape of that ensemble. Of course, this is all exploratory. The opportunity to play with the music in a non-threatening way where you have to perform in a recital is sometimes anathema to children. So that would be my answer.
Okay. Dr. Clare or Dr. Anothai?
I guess this would be back to based on what I observed from the Semai children, like maybe put the instruments in front of them and see which one they grab first. Maybe that would be the one that they may be more interested in, and allowing them to like not be interested in an instrument if they are not interested. And maybe, yeah, you can actually observe, I observed from the field work that some of them like the nose flute, some of them like the bamboo zither, and some of them prefer to sing. So maybe giving them the freedom to sort of choose the musical instruments of their choices.
Thank you. Yes, yes.
In my case, if I can support Dr. Jocelyn's point about recitals, I think the idea of recitals in any music school is such a big burden to the students and also the teachers as well. So if we can first learn to promote the informal music making environment to allow students or ourselves to perform in different venues and different environment, different group of audiences. I think this will encourage a lot more people to make music. And secondly, as Dr. Jocelyn mentions, the idea of mixed ensemble, where each musician can learn the role of being performers and listeners at the same time. So I think this is extremely helpful. And another thing is that I can never grasp my head around is the idea of single instrumentalist. Can't we be multi-instrumentalists? I've seen, thank you to UP again, a lot of students in UP are really, and this is something that we have always in our traditional music, but it's completely lost when we start practicing Western music. So the idea of multi-instrumentalist, can you bring it back, please?
Thank you for your answers. We have one question, but this is to be asked live by Dr. Arwin Tan.
So actually, I like to ask to Dr. Jocelyn and Dr. Clara or Dr. Anothai too. As we mentioned that before, the education for the children is very important to combine with the parents and the schools, teachers, and the student all together. But that Dr. Clara mentioned that also in our country too, that there are many students are busy with their subjects, and schools are busy with their subjects and tuition, and also in a society, parents are busy with their business. So how can we encourage to our parents, not only to our students, how can we engage and how can we encourage to our parents? I want to get an opinion from all of you. Thank you very much.
Historically, and this was led by Dr. Santos when he was chair of the national music competitions for young artists, there was a traditional music ensemble, and it was entitled Family Ensemble. So it was not a competition, but a festival where families get to perform together. So children and parents, grandparents even, and cousins get to perform together. And this was done I think in the 80s. So I guess that would be one, to have more music making within families.
Thank you, Dr. Jocelyn.
Maybe I can just give some input. In Malaysia, I see not a huge phenomena that there is not much music going on in the communities. Like even in the small town that I'm living in, we don't engage with the communities in performance of music. So if there was music among the communities and music is everywhere in the community, and the kids are learning that might, encourage students to see music more as a hobby, as something fun to do, rather than something that, you know, they have to be tested on. Yeah, I think we need more music in the communities.
Dr. Anothai?
Yeah, if I can share just a little bit, I think the first reason most of the parents will withdraw their children from learning music is because they don't have time to practice. So that's kind of like always the first reason. So it means that our music educations always aim to at putting children into a practice room. And I think this needs to be changed somehow. And can we make music fun? Can we make music in the way that it can be shared between generations? For example, one project that we do in PGM is called PGM Singers. And this is a project where we try to get people from multi-generations, like from 6 years old to 80, and they come together, listening, sharing, and more importantly, composing the music together, making their own set, making their own costumes, writing their own scripts, sing the songs, playing a small theater production, all this kind of thing. So I think it's just the idea that making music doesn't always end up in practice room. And if we can make this happen, the world will be full of music, I think.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm afraid that we are running out of time already. So at this point, I would like to thank our three great speakers for this afternoon, Dr. Jocelyn Guadalupe, Dr. Clare Ching, and Dr. Anothai Nitibhon for your sharing your important studies. And what to sum up our panel, I sense that what is really important in music pedagogy is the lived experience of our students and also us being teachers, that it's important that we make music live and fun, because only in making this lived experience something that is dynamic, spontaneous, entertaining also for us, and something that's pleasant, will we be able to start loving what we do. And when we start to inculcate this love for the art, I think our students can also learn how to love music easily. So with that, thank you very much for this wonderful session. And I am so happy to have moderated this panel. Thank you very much. See you later, everyone.